Salutations everyone, and welcome to another episode of Brainy Reviews. In this review, we're reviewing the game Starward Rogue, a roguelike/bullet hell game by Arcen Games LLC, known for such titles as Bionic Dues, The Last Federation, and AI Warfleet Command, amongst many others. But before we get into the gameplay proper, let's take a quick look at the options menu, which shows that it contains a fully rebindable key setup for gamepad, keyboard, and even controller of any variety that you need, even for the main menu, move, aim, actions, which will be needed for the bullet hell setup. Now for graphics and performance, we have full screen, windowed, all the shaders and sliders that you could possibly want in order to make it look as beautiful and as stand out as much as possible on your specific monitor. And performance, you can disable most anything in the game that is pertinent to it in order to reduce the graphics requirements. However, I haven't noticed any frame skips at what I'm doing. Then again, my computer's fairly souped up still at a Titan 750, and that has absolutely no problem running this game, and I'm fairly certain that computers with much lesser graphics cards could run it just fine as well. And graphics quality can also be reduced so it puts less strain on your RAM as well. Audio sliders, 4 audio sliders, of which 3 are used primarily throughout the game. 1 is used for the tutorial, I believe, and probably some cutscenes that can appear from time to time. And the voice volume is the one that's not used that often. Other 3 can be adjusted however you like. You can even disable most of them. And extras, limit the minimap display, skip the intro. I don't have any specialty unlock codes, so let's get on to the gameplay proper. Now the story of the game is as follows. You are a mercenary, sent to pilot one of these mechs through the structure called the megalith to rescue a gentleman named Rodney, who's being guarded by the robotic warden. And without further ado, here are the enterprising mechs. White gloss, average throughout the board in all its stats in its missile, energy weapon, and otherwise. Flame tank, short range, very powerful secondaries. Indigo dipole, one of the mechs that starts off with a natural bullet repellent, which in a bullet hell is incredibly useful. Green Envy, also known as the Merchant, you want as much money and key cards, which operate as keys to unlock other items within the game itself, on every kill, with the expense of having a harder time to level up, which is the other bit of natural progression, as there are a few RPG elements in the game itself. Deep Blue relies heavily on its secondary drone and its secondary energy cannon, and Red Shift, time only moves when you do. Sounds very strange, but if you've ever played the game super hot, or at least know of it, that's pretty much what happens with Red Shift. Whenever you take an action, time will move forward. Whenever you stop, everything will pause and you'll get some time to think. Now you have 5 different difficulty levels. Extremely easy, so much that the game basically plays itself. You just have to do some minor dodges so you don't die immediately. Regular easy, which is a good starting point if you're somehow new to bullet hell genres entirely, but a fair amount seem to be produced over the past couple of years, so I doubt that everyone would be completely new. Such as things like Nuclear Throne, which operates actually very much like this game if you think about it, with the exception of the lack of melee weapons. Normal, the difficulty that I always play on. Hard, I've tried this. I would not recommend it unless you can regularly beat normal difficulty, as hard really kicks it up a notch. Misery I'm not touching with a 10-foot pole. If I can't beat the game on normal, then misery is going to be miserable, especially when they start describing things like Toho or boat murder, of which they're a very famous, one's a very famous reference, the other's Toho, the poster child for bullet hell. Now anyway, we're going to go with Vanilla Ice and start a run-through just to show how the game works. So you've got your movement, which is incredibly tight, and you'll pretty much stop on a dime with maybe a little bit slight movement, but you can do the micro adjustments that you need. And thankfully the distances that you're usually at when firing at your opponent means that the micro adjustments usually come into play. And for your weapons, you have your energy weapon, which is usually fired by right-click. This one in particular has a bouncing energy blast, which radiates out after you fire it. And then you have your missiles, of which are the only really consumable shots in the game. So, every match starts off with you going into an item room, where you'll go to acquire whatever it is you possibly need. And that was me picking up some missiles, and your energy recharges in between each room, so don't care about its use at all. So, in place of my rail cannon, I can get the Guardian Blaster, which when fired does this. Oh, I recognize those shots. So the Guardian Blast would block, yes, destroys projectiles, which would be really useful, as this is the one mech that doesn't, or one of the mechs that doesn't naturally start off with a projectile destruction, which in bullet hell is really, really handy. I mean, that's kind of an understatement, but it's very important. And you can take a look at the visuals for a second here, and you'll see that they're gorgeous. I mean, we're right next to a sun, and most of this stuff should be burning alive, but you get all this chunk of material and metal that's just floating through space. Needless to say, it's a very, very beautiful setup. Anyway, let's continue on to the actual combat. Combat is very tight, I can say that much, in that there's a lot of precise dodging that you have to do. Although, we're not going to see that in the very first couple of levels, and I don't intend for this to go on that often. I just wanted to show you how the gameplay works and give you my own little spiel on it, as is any good review would. Alright, come here, opponents. Most enemies have very specific bullet patterns that you'll have to learn to memorize, based purely on their names. Their color and their kind will determine what they do. And there's also the environment that you'll have to worry about, because the environment will do random things such as this. There'll be these portals that you can fire into, which will fire your bullets at random into other locations, and other things such as this gravity well, which will start pulling your bullets towards it, and will do the same thing to your enemies as well. There are also teleporters that you need to be aware of, and can use to get out of a pinch. And a lot of the game is learn how to position your enemy's bullets so you don't get destroyed by them. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the gameplay. Use your pieces of equipment when possible, or when they would provide you the most benefit, and then just try to stay alive in spite of everything else. Now for the art style, it is very much an Arcen LLC games, in that it has a slightly cartoony-ish art style, yet has enough hard lines in it that it still looks gorgeous, like a small, not exactly cel-shaded-esque is what can be described as, and even then that's not exactly correct, because cel-shaded requires the art style use a lot softer colors. Anyway, aside from that, rooms can only be and aside from that, the artwork just generally looks very pretty, and the bullets only more so. Now that we finally completed that room, I can speak a bit more about gameplay mechanics. So you'll see up here is my health, my shield, which is basically kind of this disposable health that you get at the start of every room. And you'll get a certain amount based on your level of upgrades and what mech you've selected. Vanilla Ice, of course, has one shield, which is the standard across the board. You also have the RPG elements, which is the experience system. As you destroy enemies, you get certain amounts of experience, and each time you level up, it takes longer to level up, but you gain access to perks, and these perks will modify gameplay for you in some way, shape, or form, either by providing more missiles, more energy, or providing extra stranger benefits, such as increased damage percentages and otherwise. You also have health shards, which can be acquired from flashing objects like this by blowing them up. These health shards, when you collect enough, will add a permanent 1 to your health total. You also want to destroy those barricades, which can only be blown up by missiles, which is why I'm using my precious missiles, in order to grab things like keys and otherwise. Keys can be used in order to unlock certain doorways or chests in order to acquire new loot. Anyway, we're going to pick up Orbiting Battle Station to spawn a temporary orbiting ally. I've yet to actually figure out how that works. I think it's bound to the same key that your missiles are bound to. Oh no, that's apparently not the case at all. Let's figure it out. I've looked this up multiple times, I just keep forgetting how to use it, because I usually don't have disposables in that. Or, not exactly disposables, but consumable objects. There's usually permanent consumables, not permanent consumables, but permanent passive effects that you can put in that, which are significantly more useful. And there are also certain permanent items and passives that you can gain. I'll show you one when I can find it, or at least I'm going to keep going until we get to a boss, which will show us where which one is. Will give us an item usually. Oh, you son of a gun. Alright, so we can find the boss. Looks of things, it will be down below us? No. I should also not run in circles. As I said, movement controls are tight, and if I could find the one example where they're not, it'd be good to show you at least. Well, I guess a mini-boss is as good as any boss, so let's see which mini-boss did we get. The Hunter. Mini-bosses provide no actual benefit aside from getting tons of experience and teaching you certain mechanics while fighting a boss, such as enemies can have shields too and just become immune to certain attacks if you're not careful. But if you can dodge well enough, that shouldn't be a massive issue. Now hopefully the Hunter will die very, very soon. Soon. There we go. Anyway, we've got a little store to visit here, where you can spend your hard-earned credit to buy certain items. These cheap shops that don't require a key usually have very lackluster items. Like, hey, I can buy 4 extra energy for my ammo weapons, permanently. Which doesn't actually add 5 shots. If you look at here, you can see how much energy per shot it requires. And that amount is what you have to go over to grab an extra shot with the weapon. You can also buy a damage booster. 2% damage increase for my primary weapon. I'll pick that up just because I don't have a lot of money, and I doubt I'm going to get enough money on the first floor to actually purchase something. And then down here we have the Robo Shop, which can buy orbitals, which orbitals exist. Orbitals do various things of various types. Items do various things of various types, and while it is incredibly specific, I don't feel much need to tell you much else. So, let's open up this container with our one key and see what we get. A tactical nuke. I still don't know how to use that. I'd like to think it's Q, maybe. No, you son of a gun. There we go. Now, these little things, when they break, they'll reform over time. And when they reform, they're incredibly annoying to deal with because they'll slow you down as they're reforming. Anyway, aside from that, we're hunting down the final boss, so I can at least show you what one boss looks like, because this is supposed to be a bullet hell. So far you haven't seen enough bullets for it to actually qualify, as the game seriously wants to pull off the bullet hell portion of it, at least with its bosses. And I should also show you a level up in the perks described. So if you find yourself not really getting items from shops, you can also get perks. As you level up, you can get additional things like increase max energy by 25, which is almost enough for the energy boost, or increase your max health by 2, which you can easily make up the difference in health shards. So these two are generally not useful, but when you get something like Brute, 20% damage for everything and not just your primary weapon, you might as well take it. Now, little consumables like that mean health. You can just pick those up whenever you need to. Consumables do not disappear when you leave the room. Anyway, let's make sure we don't get caught by the thing's bullets. And if you are stuck in a rule, like you can't shoot past this location, your enemies also cannot shoot past that location. I kind of messed myself up. Let's just run through this and hopefully not get hit. Good. Alright, so the boss looks like it's going to be over in this general direction. I have no issue with just wandering over there. Now thankfully with the enhanced large mini-map here, we should be able to find whatever location we're looking for. And some rooms just generally do nothing except have little pieces of equipment here and there that you could pick up. So hopefully that'll break this. Yes! Broke 2 of them, gives me 2 more health shards, and we should be on to the boss soon. Now, there's always 5 floors, and I made it to the Warden just once. I will warn you, I have not beaten the Warden. The Warden's nightmarish. The Warden is nightmarishly difficult, even on normal difficulty, and I suppose it's a good skill gate. If you don't beat the Warden on this difficulty level, how can you be expected to beat anything on the higher difficulty one, where some things will start operating as the Warden? Anyway, aside from that, I haven't found the one thing I was looking for in terms of the one real issue I have with the game, so I might as well just talk about it. There's a small issue when trying to go at diagonal walls, in that the diagonal walls don't actually operate like diagonals. Like, if you try to walk into a diagonal wall, I'll see if there was one in the back that I just missed entirely before we make it to the boss. You will get caught on the side wall, and this is like a massive issue, because getting caught on a wall in a bullet hell might kill you, because you need to be able to keep dodging. If you run into a diagonal, you're probably expected to just be like pushing yourself out of the way, and I am surprised. There's usually one per level, usually. We'll just grab these items first and foremost. More missiles. We might as well use all our items against the boss. Oh yes, and all traps deactivate when a room is finished. Wait. I think I saw one. Yep. Even though it's technically a corner, if this was an actual side wall, you'd probably be about here and you'd slide along the side. But no, if you run into the wall and I'm running perfectly to the right, you see that I'm just kind of stuck here. And now if I'm going to just run straight down, I run slightly to this side. It's not a great demonstration, but there are much bigger ones in the game, where you can quite clearly see that it's really just a bunch of corners stacked together, which is my only real issue with the movement here. Aside from that, bullets feel weighty, meaty, enemies blowing up feels satisfying, and we'll fight a boss I have not seen before. Like, beforehand I was actually getting repeat bosses from time to time. Oh wait, never mind, I've seen the Battle Swarm before. Battle Swarm is a really annoying boss where it'll fire out a bunch of stationary projectiles, then they will all rotate and move into random directions where you'll have to manage all of them. And there seems to be a good set of around 6 bosses. There's a fair amount of mini-bosses and regular bosses where things will never really get too dull when fighting bosses, yet they remain consistent enough where you can actually learn how to fight them. And here's where they pull off their grand trick. So when they mean swarm, they really do mean bullet hell. And I suppose that in, like, greater difficulties, at hard mode they said patterns like this would be infinitely harder, or might be non-existent if they're deemed too easy. So I really don't want to take a look at what a boss on hard mode looks like. But I perfectly cleared the Battle Swarm, and gained the first passive item of the game, which reduces reload time of our main weapon, which allows it to do this. And if you pay attention to the sound file of it firing, you'll see that it's actually a lot faster. And with that, leads to the next level, which the next level is basically another level like this, except larger, more items, more rooms, more enemies, more of pretty much all that good stuff. And challenges, which I might as well show you before we end off this this episode. And at the end of each level, you can see absolutely everything you've done. You gain experience based on your accuracy, you gained experience based on the enemies you've killed. Shows you which rooms you've explored and which rooms you've not, how many consumables you've used, which I need to figure out how to do that personally, because I don't remember if the tutorial actually showed that or not. And down here, Cheapskate. Buy all items from cheap shops before entering the next floor for a bonus, and I think this also guarantees that this floor will have a cheap shop available, which is a shop that does not require any keycard to access, and for completing that objective you get the following rewards, which this is also a little bit bugged. It will not tell you the correct objective, which should be fixed in the next couple of patches, as this game is a very, very new release. I probably couldn't catch everything. Anyway, that's it for the gameplay. We'll exit off here, and you can also continue the run even if you've left it off. So if you like, oh hey, I have to leave for something, well, I'm fine. I don't have to save my run. I'm not suddenly kicked off. I can just leave whenever and then come back. You can even leave in the middle of a battle and then return. So it's like, you get a really insane bullet pattern. You could show it to your friends. Who knows? And there's always tutorials to go back and relearn how to do everything. And you have statistics, what objects you found. I apparently haven't found a lot of bosses, but I found a fair amount of mini-bosses. Which ones have I found? I've been to the Warden once, and I've fought the Wallmaster, Invader, Crystal Mother, Centrifuge, Battle Swarm, but I've apparently missed out on a few. But as you can see, there's an absolute plethora of enemies, which goes into well into the second page, and then you start getting items like passives, consumables otherwise, and I don't know what incredibility means, but it certainly must be something good. And there's certain items that are locked that can only be unlocked through certain means from within the game itself, I'd assume. Anyway, that's it for Starward Rogue, and I would rate this roguelike very highly, and I'd highly recommend you grab it. I should actually go and check the price really quickly so I don't sound like an idiot, but then again I already do. What is Steam's Starward Rogue price? Hello? Well, this is embarrassing. You know, this is like the first actual successful run, and now I feel absolutely devastated with myself that I've actually forgotten to check the price before this. Okay, Starward Rogue seems to be approximately $12 usually, which is a really, really strange price, but it's also 10% off, so currently it's $10.79 and usually $12. Anyway, highly recommend it. If you can get it for its reduced price, it's also good. If you don't want it, but you want it now, it seems worth your while, as it has a lot of replayability with the multiple mechs and multiple difficulty levels. Anyway, this has been BrainBoy20 with Brainy Reviews Starward Rogue, and I'm signing off. If you enjoyed the video, remember to like, comment, or subscribe, for it helps out a great deal. And is that the last hydro? And I hope to see you all next time. Farewell. Wait, really? Is that the last hydro? I mean, the trailer did say it was the last hydro, I just didn't believe it. Anyway, farewell.